Bob.
We are live, I believe. I'm hoping. Okay, welcome to the March 20th. Let's try that again. Welcome to the April 3rd Accounts Review Subcommittee meeting. And we have Councilor Thomas Minicello as well as Councilor Jack Lally. Jeez.
I mean, how you really feel?
With us as well. Karen from the Auditor's Department, and Irene as well from the Auditor's Department with us. So we're gonna do, Karen's gonna give us just a City Finance 101 kind of presentation for refresher for us and for anybody who's at home. I think this will be a really valuable presentation. We'll talk a bit about procurement and munis, invoice demonstration, and then of course, we'll do a review of any of the warrants that the counselors have questions on. So with that, Karen?
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna just go over General Finance 101, looking at the budget, how it's represented. And so the first thing that that's prepared within the budget is a review of our revenue. Revenue is the income that the city brings in. A budget is the expenditures that we're gonna spend for the fiscal year. Revenue dictates how much a city can spend. So anytime the budget is put together, it's put together based off of revenues equaling expenditures, which is considered a balanced budget. And by state law, all communities, cities, and towns have to present a balanced budget to the city council for them to review. While they're reviewing it, the city council has the authorization to reduce expenditure appropriations. Any questions? Okay, as we're looking at building that revenue estimate, these are different types of revenue that the city receives that funds our budget. The first is our tax levy. So that's gonna involve revenue that the community raises through their taxes. So residents pay taxes, those taxes help fund the budget to cover expenses that are incurred through the city. We also receive state aid, which is people know as cherry sheet. And this aid includes lottery funds, chapter 70 funding, school aid, veterans benefits, libraries, and this is money that we receive from the state that helps all cities and towns fund their budgets. It's called state aid. The third set of revenue that the city receives are local receipts. So local receipts include anything from license fees, excise tax, money that we collect when people do inspections, permits. It can even, it include marriage certificates, different fees in marijuana, fees that we get from the different distributors that are producing that type of revenue. And the other source of revenue we are from reserve accounts that we have money set aside that then cover our different expenditures. And I'll go into more detail as we look at each section of these revenue sources. So the first revenue source is our tax levy. A lot of people, the tax, for the property taxes that all the residents pay, the levy limit is the maximum amount a community can assess in property taxes each year. This limit is reviewed, it's approved annually by the Department of Revenue. The levy limit can only be increased 2.5% each year, hence based off of the proposition 2.5. The levy limit can only be exceeded 3 ways, and it requires a vote by City Council and also a ballot vote. So if you want to increase taxes for residents based over what we're allowed to by law, which is 2.5, it either has to be in the form of an override. An override is a permanent increase of the levy limit for operational purposes. So if we didn't have enough taxes to balance the budget and local receipts, or there are other projects in this town or city wanted to increase the taxes in order to increase revenue, that would be required, that would be an override, which would require a city vote, also a vote by the residents. The second type of increase of taxes over what we're allowed would be a debt exclusion. So this includes, this is temporary, it's usually voted each year, and it's an increase of the levy that helps fund a capital project. So funding for a capital project comes from debt. So this would be debt service or payments that the city would need to make to cover a capital project that may be in excess of what we're able to approve by city council. And the other amount that can exceed the allowed levy is for a capital exclusion. And it's a one-time increase. It doesn't carry forward each year. And that increase for capital exclusion, it covers if you have a particular capital project that you want to move forward with, and maybe there's not enough money in the budget, you could then, it would go out to vote to the residents if they want to increase taxes to cover that. We collect taxes. We have quarterly billings, July, October, January 1st, and April 1st. We do annual mailings twice. Within those, you have 2 different quarterly billing periods within each of the 2 tax mailings that you get in order to pay your taxes. We have collection methods where you can come into City Hall and you can pay your taxes in the tax office, or you can also pay them. This is a copy of the governor's proposed budget. When the presentation that I'm presenting right now was the FY23 proposed budget. This is the governor's proposed budget in terms of what they're allocating to the city and what was proposed in the governor's budget. The conference committee later in the year, when they have a final approved budget, these numbers can change, but I just wanted to go through where you have your education distribution, as I spoke to before, your chapter 70. There's different general government in terms of unrestricted general government aid that can be used for different projects. There's a certain amount that goes to the school department to fund different expenses for the school. So this was our state aid. In 23, the estimate was at $255,936,167. This is the largest revenue source that the city of Brockton receives in order to balance our budget. So as we look at balancing the budget, as I mentioned before, revenue dictates how much we can spend. Because we need to have a balanced budget. In FY23, the proposed budget was $460,876,950. That is broken down. 55% of the revenue we receive is from state aid, and that's noted in the pink where it says cherry sheet, $255 million. We also have our taxes. 36% of the revenue that covers paying for all the expenses that the city undertakes comes from taxes, 36%. We also have local receipts. Local receipts were the permits, the fees, revenue collections through different receipts, and that's at $23 million. That represents 5% of our revenue that's brought in. And then available funds represents funds that have been allocated, and we'll get into more detail, such as some of our reserve accounts, free cash, which is a term that a lot of people hear about. That money is certified by Department of Revenue, and what that represents is the money that we have at the end of the fiscal year, after they've been able to review all the accounts of what's left that the city can use as revenue to fund the budget. So this is just a revenue summary. In this summary, I have actuals going back to 2020 to our projected, which was 2023, and as you can see, we have our tax levy at 166. We have state aid at 256. We have local receipts, which is itemized by different categories that the city has put together, and you can find this in our FY23 GFOA certified budget book. So you have excise tax revenue at 11.8 million, department fees, there's other different fines, license and permits, 3.8, other revenue sources, $6 million for available funds. Available funds are funds that we use to balance the budget, but they have a specific use. So we have ambulance receipts. A lot of that revenue goes towards the police department for some of their expenditures. We have free cash. Free cash is the amount of money that the Department of Revenue certifies that we have available at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. This number is normally provided anytime within March or April after the city has submitted the balance sheets, has submitted all the different state requirements for the state to look at all of our expenses, all of our revenue, all of our grants, if there's any deficits, and then they tell us as a certification, this is what you have to cover the budget. We have parking meters, so this is some of our reserve and revolving funds. That money is, for this year, the parking authority is now an enterprise fund. So with the general fund, you're not gonna see this number. This is just a general fund, but this was in from previous years, so you can see the money that came in previous years that we were used to fund the budget. And then we had, if there's money that we're using from stabilization to fund anything, you would see it here within the revenue summary. This is more of a detailed local receipts. A lot of people wonder, well, what does local receipts represent? It's motor vehicle, boat excise, penalty and interest, hotel, motel tax, payment in lieu of, mails, we have the mails tax that we receive. We also have, from a department, weights and measures. They have fees that they charge when we go out to measure different scales at different locations. We have fire, we have police revenue, we have departmental charges, we have the cable franchise fee, we have fees that we collect through the cemetery, we have stormwater. Well, this stormwater fees wouldn't be in for proposed because that's now an enterprise fund. So you wouldn't see this as local receipts, this is in there from previous years. We have fines that the city clerk's office collects, license commission, the health department, public property, animal, Department of Public Works. There's different license and permits that we charge a fee for. So these are all estimates. We have investment income, we have, enterprise reimbursement. So the enterprise reimburses the general fund as a revenue source for indirect costs. Indirect costs are costs that are core administrative fees and benefits, mainly benefits that are expensed in the general fund. But these are all funds that then help to fund our budget. And then I just wanted to quickly, I just did a summary of the expenditures. In the budget document, you can look further into each department in terms of what each department spend, but in general, we have 48% of our budget is spent on the school department, which we have $222 million. We have general government, which is mainly all of your departments that don't make up public safety, which is fire, police, animal. You have human services, which is council of aging. So all of these different categories represent areas where different departments are represented in. Then we have we have DPW. So those are the different categories of the expenditures. So this just kind of gave you an overview of, from the $460 million that we have in revenue, this is how the expenditures were proposed when we went to City Council last year. This $460 million was reduced during the budget hearings. For this presentation, I wanted to show what we present as a balanced budget to City Council, and then as I mentioned before, the City Council has the authority to reduce any line item that's presented within the appropriation. This is an overview of the funding. Are there any questions?
No questions from the, oh, Mr. Minicello.
So with regard to the free cash,
Yes.
it looks like it says about $15 million projected.
So within this, as I mentioned, we have the balanced budget. So in order to balance the budget, as of last year, $15 million was allocated out of the free cash.
Out of the free cash.
When we look-
That's already earmarked for something.
Yes.
That's what, okay.
So it's,
Okay.
so when you look at money, we don't take 15 and say, okay, this covers police, this covers finance, this covers auditing. When we're putting a budget together, we're looking at balancing it, which means all revenue have to equal all expenditures.
Is there any place in this summary that would show us true free cash? Like any reserve money that is just in reserve?
It doesn't show this. This is strictly just the.
Just
just-
the old just-in-case fund?
This
You know what I
is,
mean?
no, this is just the budget, which
Okay.
represents,
Right.
when you're looking at balances,
Yep,
that's
right.
different.
Okay.
So the
Yep.
balances would be something if you had, we'll say, a meeting where we said, what do we have in our stabilization fund? What do we have in our health insurance trust fund? What are those balances? And those are reserve balances, so that money stays in the account, has to be appropriated by approval of the city council. So that way you can say, okay, I can see this is what I currently have. If there was a capital stabilization fund, if the city council decided that they wanted to have a capital stabilization fund, and that fund is only used to cover capital projects, then you would see an appropriation, and then that balance within that stabilization fund would stay, for attorney, and then the council would have the authority to approve any expenditures out of that.
Thank you.
But that's not part of this presentation,
Yep.
but I'm welcome to share that if you want.
Yeah, maybe for the next meeting, we'll put that on the agenda, a review of all of our reserves and balances, and, yeah.
Because there's a lot of different types of accounts. We have our fund account, but then we also have reserve funds. We have revolving funds.
Right.
And these are all by Mass General law, the certain restrictions we have in terms of spending these different accounts. But I can.
Thank you.
more than welcome.
Yep. We'll let Mark make the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely put that on, why not?
Perfect.
Jack, anything?
No, that,
All right.
that pretty well sums it up. It was a very well assembled presentation. I do
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yep, very
Thank
much
you.
appreciated, very much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Karen, and I guess we can go on to the next item about procurement workflow.
Yes. So one thing that I wanted to go over in terms of procurement is just what we look at and what goes through our procurement office. What internal controls have the city have. I can only speak to what I've done since I started working in the office in May, but I wanted to share that with you. One second. Well, I can speak on, I'm gonna speak on some of these. I don't have a handout, I can provide a handout, but I just wanted to talk about, in terms of procurement. One of the things that we look for within auditing and procurement is our Mass General Law 30B. 30B is a procurement of supplies and services. And so in order to make sure that we're adhering to state law, we have different controls to make sure that anything under $10,000 is sound business practices. Anything between $10,000 to $15,000 have to have 3 quotes. Anything over $50,000 needs to go out to bid. So within that process, we have internal controls with our contract routing forms. So whenever a vendor wants to provide services to the city, we'll say it's over $50,000, there's a contract routing form that the city uses to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed in terms of making sure that it adheres to procurement law. So within that contract routing form, we have a copy of the contract, plus the routing form first starts with procurement. The department puts together what they would like to procure. It's then reviewed by our procurement officer, who then reviews it in terms of Chapter 30B, state law, making sure it's an allowable expense, and making sure that the contract is sound and all the proper paperwork is provided. The second on that list is the auditing department. With an audit department, a department wants to procure services for salt. I'll then look at their budget to make sure they have enough money within their budget, within that statutory category, in order to be able to make the purchase. If there isn't enough money, we're not gonna move forward with signing the contract until there's enough money available. Sometimes departments, what I do is I confirm that they're using the proper account number, that they're using the proper object code. A lot of our object codes that are set up in our financial system should represent the actual expense. So those are different things that I'm trying to educate different city departments. We're adding object codes. If I see expenditures that don't actually represent the expense, but it's just a code that's always been there, I'm able to add them, and I'm able to update that system to make sure that it's a true reflection and it's very transparent on what we're buying, and it's clear to the departments what codes they should be using. The third department that reviews all the contract and the writing forms would be the finance department. It goes to the CFO, it goes to the law department for them to review the project, and then it's then forwarded to the mayor. Once it's approved, that then starts the process in terms of how a department can put in a requisition, and then I was gonna show you within Munis what that looks like and what we review when it comes to auditing before we issue a purchase order.
Karen?
One thing that I put together and.
Karen,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Councilor
One
Minichillo.
quick, you said $1,000 to $10,000. You don't need quotes, you don't need 3 quotes, right?
No, we don't, that's sound business practices. And so what I've done is I put together a manual that was given to, this was produced in August, and if you like, you can have a copy. But this purchase order guide explains what a purchase order is. It explains what a blanket PO is, blanket purchase orders, standard purchase orders. Standard purchase orders have to be encumbered for the contract. Past practice is
That'd be
that
great.
Yeah.
purchase orders were created just to pay an invoice. So having it procured and encumbered for the entire contract allows us to be able to review how much has been spent by a vendor based off a contract that has been approved by the department, by procurement, by the city. So those are a lot of the internal controls and some of the things that have changed since I started. We have blanket purchase orders so that we can see how, and these are usually for fuel, electricity, utility bills that come every month. Instead of sending a bill every single month, we can encumber amount that we feel we're gonna spend for the year, and we can draw down. So throughout the whole year, I can say, okay, we knew we spent 10,000, well, 10% or 50% through the fiscal year, we aren't spending as much on electricity. And that
Right.
in the fiscal year, we will close out that purchase order, and those funds that are now available because we didn't spend them would be part of the equation when we're looking at determining free cash.
The 3 quotes go from 10 to 15 or 10 to 50?
10 to 50.
50,
10 to 50.
okay, 50, yeah, 50. And
And
then over 50 is the out to bid? Over
Yes.
50, okay, thank you. I thought it was
There
50, I
are
couldn't tell,
exceptions.
15 or 50, wasn't it?
Big difference.
Yeah, big difference, yeah.
Yes.
10 to 50, 3 quotes, 50 and over, out to bid, oh, thank you.
And one thing, just within my department, I have 3 accounts payable administrators, and they have taken recently 30B training. So they're all understanding and aware of what is an allowable expense. I provide a lot of training for my staff, so it just is an assembly line task of what they do, but they understand what to look for. We have more than 200 to 300 to 400 invoices that come across our desk every day, and we have an increase in our department just in terms of allocating. Everyone in our department is cross-trained so that we have enough staff to be able to review and there's no rush. And so we have instructions that are in place in terms of what each administrative assistant should be looking for as they review it, so that if anything doesn't comply, it doesn't get paid. and then it goes through me, can get rejected, it goes back to the department. You know, if something is expensed and it shouldn't be, then they would have to pay back the city if I found something like that.
Great.
Thank
Karen, two things. If you could send that document to the members of the subcommittee, that would be great. And in the name of time, just because the clock is not our friend tonight, because we have the city council finance meeting coming up quickly, I was hoping we could take item 3 and maybe postpone that to the next meeting.
Oh, sure.
So that we can go into item 4. Council Lally.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to postpone item number 3 to the next meeting.
Second?
All right, all in favor? So moved. Item number 3 is postponed to the next accounts review meeting, and we'll go on to item number 4, the review of the warrants. And this is where these items, the money's been spent, but this is the opportunity of the city council, or the subcommittee members rather, to go through and review the items and ask questions. I'm gonna, again, because of timing, I wanna let both Councilor Lally and Councilor Minicello make sure that your questions get answered, and I can save mine to the next meeting or over email, or, let's see, Councilor Lally, you wanna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a couple things that I was sort of curious about. I'm sure it makes sense. But on page 13, the vendor is the City of Brockton Mayor's Office, and the city is paying the Mayor's Office $5,000 for other contract services. So I'm almost wondering how we're paying the mayor or the mayor's office, like how is one department paying another department? But you know, why wouldn't the city council approve a transfer, something like that? But also just, you know, what's going on?
I can pull that up. So if you
Yep.
look at column 5, God bless you.
Thank
If you
you.
look at column 5, there's a purchase, it says PO. I'm going to then pull up that purchase order.
You want me to read it off?
Yes, you have the same one, 135-30172.
135-30172, yes.
Okay, so for all of our purchase orders, we have, the first thing that we have is we have an attachment, which then each department is required to enter, which gives us a summary of what was actually expensed. So this is for a grant award application for a summer conference, so for a summer concert. This here was coming out of a grant fund that is administered through the mayor's office. Let's see. Oh, this is for the Brockton Cultural Council.
Okay.
So this is a pass-through. It's a grant that passes through. It's paid to the city, and then we expense the funds to the council, the cultural council.
Okay, so this would just be the way to document the money passing through.
That's correct. And there's not
Okay.
that many, this is one of the only ones that we have that's a pass-through. We have the Brockton Redevelopment Authority.
Yeah.
Where we are the recipient of the grant, but it passes through the city and then it's provided to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority because we have an agreement with the Brockton Redevelopment Authority to manage our expenses. So the way that those checks are done is a little different than if you would have another vendor.
How it has to be organized.
But this is
makes
just,
sense.
so I just wanted to also, in what has been just postponed is that when we're looking at the requisitions and before we make a payment, all of our auditors, which is part of the auditing process, we review all of the paperwork and invoices that are attached. And that's something that I started when I began here. So that was another initiative in August, that all of the departments were required to scan all of the back work into the purchase order. So as we're looking at it before we pay it, that we know exactly what the services are.
Great.
All right. In the interest of time, anything I have other than this, I'll just chase down or follow up or hold to the next meeting. But I do appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, and that's it. All I got.
All right. Mr. Manicello, anything you want to?
I just was curious about purchase order 109-1458. Sorry, page 25. President and Fellows of
Say
Harvard.
109?
Yep, 109,
Yeah.
1459. President and Fellows of Harvard College?
Oh, that.
Or is that the wrong column, or is it 814-31000?
Okay, 81.
Oh, no, it's the 109.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
10.
109-1458.
Yep.
586?
5-8.
58, yeah, 109-1458.
Karen, try 814-31000.
Okay, 1 second.
Sorry, that was the check number. My apologies.
814,
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, 31000.
yep. What page are you looking at?
25?
25.
I start it if you want mine.
What is the vendor?
President and Fellows of Harvard College?
Okay.
Karen, that's the check number.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, it's 814. Yeah.
Sometimes I have to go into this.
I would guess, I would guess that this is probably something to do with the Harvard Kennedy School. I know the mayor's done some collaborations with them.
Sorry. I can't seem to find if you'd like, I can pull a copy of this, and I can email it to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just curious what, what it's for.
All right, trying to look one other way.
There is not a one in front of it.
There's no, yeah.
There's another way I can do that.
Okay. Yeah, sure, great. That's fine.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying it's,
Yeah, Karen, maybe we could have this sent to us so that we can have it for the next meeting, that's all.
Okay, yes.
That's fine, that's
Yeah, I
good, that's
can-
fine.
And I can email this.
Yeah, great.
One thing
Oh,
I was
perfect. That's
thinking,
perfect.
if there's any invoices on here that
Mhm.
you wanna review, I can always pull them up
Okay,
by your request,
Yeah.
and then we can review them in order, and I can already have them loaded into the system.
perfect. That sounds good.
Yeah, for future meetings, we can
Yeah.
kind of send you ahead of time, or at least try to,
Yeah.
and then you'll be ready, and, this will go a little more smoothly.
Yeah.
Can I ask, unless you have another one, Tom?
No, I'm good.
All right, I would like to just quickly, if you can pull it up, and if you can't, that's okay. PO number 210-30300.
What page you want, Mark?
Page 33, second to last. And it's a vehicle repair, but it's a $12,000 vehicle repair. What in the world did we fix for $12,000?
big pothole.
What page is this on again?
33.
Page 30.
Yeah, 33. It's the second to last one from the bottom.
Okay. For the 12,000?
Yep,
Yeah, I was just curious.
21030300.
You can just bear with me for 1 minute.
We just have that for the next one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I might as well.
We only
2
have
minutes.
2
yeah, we've only got,
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah, we'll have it for the next one.
Yeah, we'll have it for the next one, and maybe what we'll do is not do it on a Monday night. We'll have to, not that we want to have another night out, but
I don't, yeah, it
Little-
doesn't work well, but,
it doesn't work well to be up against the clock
Yeah,
on this.
with
I was
the-
trying to avoid another night, but we're going to have to
I
do
know.
that. So, all right, and so for the members of the committee, the subcommittee, I just wanted to, does it seem like monthly, every other? What do you think is appropriate?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to be the guy that says, well, at my old committee, 'cause I feel like I'm in danger of becoming that, but we did, before we did monthly, and we reviewed, both packets of warrants for the month ahead of the meeting, brought our questions in, and that way we saw everything every month.
Right.
We had the time, but
And
you know.
smaller chunks of material.
Well, so that I think worked well. I mean, it's the discretion of the committee, the discretion of the chair, but.
I
that would
wanted to
be-
learn the
that
will
would
of the
be-
committee.
Yeah, that would be my offering.
Tom, would you
Yeah, I
agree?
agree. Yep.
I think monthly that was kind of what I was leaning towards, but I wanted to
Yeah.
get the will of the
Sounds
committee
reasonable.
before I decided that. Okay, all right. With that, I want to thank the auditor's office, Karen especially for the presentation you gave us, did a great job. We
Very
really
nice,
appreciate it, very informative. I know you worked hard on that, and so much appreciated. You and I will put the date together for the May meeting. And so I also want to thank BCA for being here, making this available to the public. And I'd like to thank the members of the subcommittee for being here and their diligence. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.